Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody. It is the Marco Jure Show. It is Monday, October 20th, 2025. Thanks for tuning in to today's show to hear all the relevant, groundbreaking news here in America and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please don't forget to follow the show and share with whomever needs to hear the truth in order to continue our quest to unwoke America. I just want to thank everyone that's been doing that already. I appreciate you. I see the numbers really starting to rise, so thank you so much to all of you. I hope everyone's ready for the best hour, though, that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. Time to start the week off right. Let's get down to brass tacks. I've got a lot of great articles to delve into today, but I want to start off with what happened this weekend with these No Kings protests that were greatly orchestrated by the powers that be that want to tear down America. But what a weekend in America, huh, folks? 2,600 different protests across America's leftist cities, with 7 million dunces showing up to these No Kings protests. Now, I want to make this very, very clear to everyone listening. If President Trump was a dictator, a tyrant, an authoritarian, or a king, as they claim, there would simply be no protests. He would have them shut down immediately, right on the spot, and everybody that participated would have been jailed. Well, that clearly didn't happen, did it, folks? Now, everyone was allowed to wave their little signs around, slandering Donald Trump and, of course, Republicans. Yep, they took to the streets, blocking streets, yep, getting in Republicans' faces that were recording it, at which of no harm or foul to them whatsoever. Was anyone attacked that participated in this? Not a single person. Not a single person. Everyone was free to express their own stupidity this weekend. Now, I find it facetious that they claim Donald Trump is a king. Now, there's things we can criticize President Trump on. But to say that he's simply a king, I don't really buy that nonsense. I think he's overstepped his bounds on some issues, but I think he's far, far from a king. And all we have to do is look at American history, the founding. Look at the tyrannical matters that were taking place. Anything that King George wanted, King George got. Anything he wanted to put down, he would have put it down right away. So let's just be super clear on what a king actually does. Did you see some of these people out there, though? My God. They made Governor Jumbo Blimp Pritzker there of Illinois look fit, for God's sakes. At least they got their steps in that day. But Pritzker graced Chicago with his large presence over the weekend, telling the duly elected president of our country to stay the hell out of Chicago. Now, who the hell does this tub think that he is? The nerve of this jerk. Speaking to the president of the United States this way? I mean, again, you could disagree with people without being a pretentious jackass, and by all means, that is one big jackass right there, by the way. But Pritzker has no class, he has no honor, and certainly no respect for this country, the rule of law, or simply the office that he allegedly seeks. Yes, he's been on the list of Democrats thinking about running in 2028. Yep, there you go. I mean, what a clown this guy is. What kind of role models are these Democrats, though? That's what I want to ask everyone before we delve into these articles about what happened this weekend. I saw Republicans getting accosted by these people. One woman mocking Charlie Kirk's death. I'm told she is a school teacher in Chicago. Oh, yeah, that's nice, isn't it? That's real nice. Paul Craig Roberts has a brilliant article, as always, on the issues that have taken place this weekend. So I want to jump into that quickly. But he says the No Kings protest is an insurrection. Now, according to the American Horror Media, yesterday's No Kings protest, he wrote this on Sunday, drew 7 million Americans at 2,600 separate rallies. Now, the No Kings protest is a form of insurrection. Let me explain. The aim is to stop the functioning of democracy in the name of democracy by branding the reduction of DEI, that'd be diversity, equity, inclusion, which is a bunch of nonsense, the closing of our borders, and the deportation of illegal aliens, for which America has voted for, right, as King Trump's personal policy. Now, let's understand a couple things here. DEI. We are not supposed to be basing anything on race or anything associated with someone's creed or what have you. We should be living in a merit-based system. DEI destroys all of that. Totally violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yep, closing our borders. They don't want that. They want everyone to come in the country. We're going to speak to, well, we're not going to speak to them. We're going to listen to a couple of the low IQs that had to say things about illegal migration in the country, though. But the idea that Donald Trump is following existing immigration laws in the country and, of course, enforcing that we do have a sovereign nation with borders and enforcing those laws, Donald Trump is apparently a dictator. We'll get into that a little bit later today, but completely asinine in and of itself. And then, of course, the deportation of the illegal aliens, which Americans en masse voted for. Donald Trump won. The popular vote, of course, the Electoral College. That is a democratically run election. Who is in the streets protesting that? That'd be the people that want the mob rule. So they don't care about democracy. They care about their own power. It's unbelievable to me. Absolutely unbelievable to me that this is actually going on in the manner it's going. Again, you can criticize what President Trump does. I do it on the show all the time. If I think he's done something that has stepped over the line constitutionally, I'll talk about it. But I'll give you reasons why. I'm not going to simply just sit there and mock Donald Trump and call him a king. That's completely idiotic. Now, something that is of grave importance, and we're going to talk in more depth about who set up these protests this week. It wasn't just an organic thing that took place, folks. This is well planned in advance. It's very, very well funded. And I'm going to explain to you who as Paul Craig Roberts says, the two Jews who organized the No Kings protest, whom are Ezra Levin, I believe is how you say the name, and Leah Greenberg, said that today millions of Americans stood together to reject authoritarianism and remind the world that our democracy belongs to the people, not to one man's ambition. Now, what Levin and Greenberg mean is that America belongs to the Democratic far left. That's what they're espousing to us. So you could win an election, you could follow the law as Trump has done on these issues they're talking about, and you're still a dictator, a fascist, Adolf Hitler, all the pejoratives they throw at Donald Trump. Nothing changes. So they're the ones that don't respect democracy. They're the ones that reject election results. They don't believe in democracy. They believe in complete power, complete control of you. That's it. And if you step out of line with that, you got all the words they try to throw at you. That's all it is. So you got to ask yourselves, who are funding these organizations? Is it George Soros? Is it Israel? Is it the Democratic National Committee? Well, there's a lot of things involved in this. But here we go. Let me delve into this part a little bit further. And let me address this first, whom these two clowns are, because I think it bears grave importance to understand who they are so we can see who's channeling all this. Who are the masterminds behind this large mobilization of 2,600 different protests? It's not a cheap thing to do. And there's a couple other groups involved as well. So who is Ezra Levin? I don't know if it's Levin or I know Mark Levin his name sounds different than others. I think it's Levin, though. Mark Levin's name is different, of course. I'm not trying to equate the two. I'm just saying that's how you say the name. So I think it's Ezra Levin, if I'm not mistaken. He is the co-founder of Indivisible, among the key organizations that took place over this weekend. And he went on to say that there is no greater threat to an authoritarian regime than patriotic people in power. That's what he said. Now, his wife, Leah Greenberg, is also the co-founder of this. And she holds a Bachelor's of Arts from Carleton College and a Master of Public Affairs from Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Let's pause for a second. Let's delve into who she is really quick. Again, I did my research for you, as always. But these two are two ex-congressional staffers, by the way. They're married, of course. And the wife, Leah, whatever the hell her name is, was a member of the Rosenthal Fellowship. So she's a Rosenthal Fellow. So what is that, you ask? So like the Rhodes Scholar or the Fulbright scholarships that they put out there, really to espouse communism in this country, this one is the same, except it's given to students studying in international affairs, and they allow them to intern in Congress. Hence, they were two ex-congressional staffers. So they've been involved in government. And by the way, she also has ties to the State Department, which I think is becoming a little bit common with these paid NGOs and what they do. But it also allows people to, again, work in the executive branch, in the federal, the state, or local government. Anyway, they modeled this whole indivisible NGO after the Tea Party movement. So they took that situation, that movement, and they kind of based their ideas on this. So, Ezra has been featured as one of Time's most influential people of 2019. Now, I know some of you are saying, who the hell is this guy? We never even heard of him. But this is who they're espousing right now. Now, in April, the National March Against President Trump, Elon Musk, had 1,300 registered locations. In June, for the first No King's Day, there were 2,100 registered locations. The March Saturday will have, obviously, it had more than 2,600 locations, is what Levin said. So he's building this movement. Again, these are paid protesters. Now, you're asking who funds these people. I'm glad you did. Well, the number one benefactor of this organization is none other than George Soros' Open Border Society Foundation. Now, I call it the Open Borders because that's what he funds a lot. Of course, that's what he pushes. But the Open Society Foundation funds this unequivocally, by the way. They both actually worked in this organization, and then they branched off to this. So they're really just cutouts of George Soros. And we all know who he is, obviously. So he's knee-deep in all this, if I may say so myself, funding all this. So you have big government money coming in and funding this. Now, there were a couple other organizations, too, there that day. One of them is called Rise and Resist. And again, these are all paid protesters. This one is funded by the Sadler Foundation. Yep. They're both deceased, but they set up this organization back in 1991, again, for the same social justice issue causes that we see now. I believe the gentleman's name was Herbert Sadler, who founded this, the husband and wife again, same thing. Put in $1.3 billion back in 2006. Again, they're since deceased, but again, that's a hell of a lot of money to, again, fund these protests. And I'm sure other people give small charitable donations as well, so they keep this thing funding throughout. But these are, again, paid protesters. They have the same signs and placards that they carry around. None of this is organic. If you saw footage of San Francisco, they had it looked like they were making a sign in the beach. Do you think that's organic, folks, or do you think that's orchestrated and planned ahead of time? These people know where to go. They know where to stand. They know what sign to carry. They know what slogan to shout. Nothing about it screams organic in and of itself. So these are paid protesters. Understand that. None of this is organic. And we're seeing this as a part of the takedown of America. But these two names are very important, okay? Because they're the ones behind all this. So President Trump, again, himself was away from Washington that weekend. He was in Mar-a-Lago. He wasn't even there. But he, again, referring to him as a king, he's not a king. Okay, folks. Again, he's done things I disagree with. He's done things I think that violate our Constitution in some regards. But he is far from a king, I would say. Again, I don't see it as that. I think it's a little bit ridiculous to assert that he's a king. We have checks and balances in this country. Sometimes they don't work, but we have that in this country. We don't have a king. Okay? And I find it really interesting, too. We have Democratic governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Michelle Wu in Boston. Woo! Oh, yeah. And then again, many other states. We think about what we have in New York City now. We have Dummy running. But we have Gavin Newsom. Think about this. We have Gavin Newsom, who shut down the state for 2 years, kept kids out of public schools under the fake guise of the COVID pandemic, right? Kept your kids out of schools, told you to wear a mask, you had to wear a mask. Then you had to get a shot in order to work. All this other nonsense. Ridiculous, right? Now he's actually trying to take away congressional seats and that whole process from supposed to be a nonpartisan elective body that's supposed to write out these congressional districts to avoid any type of partisanship. And now he wants to give it back to the state legislature, where there is obviously a supermajority for the Democrats to write favorable seats. And of course, he wants to openly gerrymander to take away 5 of the 9 existing in the state of California. Totally violates the Constitution. That's why he's got to go and run this election for this new proposition, Prop 50, which everyone that's listening in California should vote no on. But here he is trying to take power away from Republicans. Openly doing this, by the way. He's not even coy about it. He's actively telling you this. This is what he wants to do. Take away 5 seats because Texas is rewriting their districts, and it looks like they're going to gain 5 seats. I've already told you before that's not illegal for Texas to do that out of the census years. That's usually when the districts are redrawn. Their state constitution allows that. Their population has greatly increased. A lot thanks to Gavin Newsom, the mass exodus of people leaving California, more than any other state. So California is losing population, and this jerk is trying to redistrict. And yet he's calling other people a king. This guy has done more things on his own. And again, the state legislature gave him all that power during COVID to act as he wished, to do whatever he wanted. He could have done anything he wanted. Doesn't do anything for wildfire development, blames other people for his failures. Number 1 state in homeless. He has no idea what happened to the $24 billion now that the state is saying is missing from this coffer for homelessness that is continuing to expand in California. Number 1 state with the most poverty is California. But, he gets up and he lies to you and he says other people are kings when he is the one that has gained more power as governor than I've seen in anything really in my own lifetime, for sure. Yet everyone else is a king. They're fine with that. As long as they take power away from you, it's okay. Nothing's wrong with that. That's okay, right? They can take power from Republicans. That's fine. J.B. Pritzker, same thing, telling ICE to get out. Gavin Newsom, ICE, get out. We have a sanctuary city. They are openly violating their own oath of office and existing federal immigration laws. And they're talking about President Trump being a king for following those existing laws passed by Congress, signed into law by a United States president. It's stupidity of the finest. And totally hypocritical, by the way, too. But that was this weekend. Did anything come as a result of this? Of course not. Nothing changed. Nothing changed at all. What changed in this protest? I mean, some of these people got their steps in this weekend. Thank God for that. I mean, judging by the looks of some of them, that was completely necessary, too. But here we go. Instead, President Trump could obviously, and I'm going back to Paul Craig Roberts here. He says Trump could easily stop these wars, of course, which the left apparently all of a sudden doesn't like wars, even though they caused every single war in the 20th century. I think with the exception of the Gulf War. But instead, he should address the war against America. That is, again, being unleashed by this Ezra Levin, Leah Greenberg, and of course their financiers, by Democratic mayors, by city councils, and of course governors who defy federal law, protect illegal aliens for their crimes of illegal entry as if they were American citizens. And by the way, anti-American media that ruthlessly attacks traditional Americans and every politician who attempts to serve America's interests, they throw them right under the bus. And of course the left-wing ideologues that are anti-American Democrats with the complicity of insouciant Republicans have institutionalized in the judiciary, especially at the district court levels. So we've got this whole power structure right now, is what he's really saying right now, that have been totally destroying the fabric of American society for quite some time now. It's been quite some time. I'd say in the 60s it became much more noticeable. But if you go back prior to the 60s counterculture revolution. That's why I've told you, is it time we have a counter to the counterculture revolution in this country and finally bring back traditional American values? Well, the left hates that idea. They've worked so hard to destroy all that. Destroy the family. Destroy the culture. Destroy religion, particularly Christianity. Completely getting involved in foreign wars of which we have no business being in. Spending trillions upon trillions of dollars on that. Foreign aid to every single damn country, but then when your city, your state needs it, it's nowhere to be found. When you go to collect your Social Security, nowhere to be found. It's always empty. It's always broke. Why? Because they're taking money for all this other crap, folks. Let's understand that. But again, this is the policy. This is what they wanted. So Paul Roberts finishes by saying, Dear President Trump, our main enemies are at home. Our only foreign enemy is Israel. And I think he means by that, of course, is the idea that we fund every single damn war that they want us to go into, which is a major problem. Again, I've talked to you in depth about that. Like, I'm not saying the people of Israel are the problem. Don't misunderstand me. But the government of Israel is certainly not our friend. Certainly not our ally. Please defend our country. Why are you working so hard to create more foreign enemies for America? And again, he's absolutely right about all this. Again, Paul Roberts worked in the Reagan administration. He knows exactly what's going on here, and he speaks very freely and openly and correctly in his daily articles that he discusses and breaks down. So I wanted to read this all to you because we have so many enemies, domestic enemies, right here in America that have no problem uprooting our values as American citizens. And they want to continue to do that. And the fight is on, folks. I hate to tell it to you like that, but that is the truth of the matter. This is where we find ourselves in our country today. Let's move on to the other big topic that took place over this weekend, of course. And that, of course, is Israel launching strikes in Gaza after accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire, which I find extremely preposterous because Israel, since day one, hasn't upheld their end of the bargain to any of these ceasefire agreements. And we're going to break down that to you today. But let's go over what happened over this weekend that kind of started this whole thing. And the Israeli military accused Hamas of violating the ceasefire agreement on Sunday, and then, of course, conducted strikes against the militant group in southern Gaza. By the way, in central Gaza, too. Netanyahu said they dropped 153 tons, of missiles onto Gaza. I mean, totally reckless, totally chaotic. But how did this all start? It says that the terror organization Hamas carried out multiple attacks against Israel forces behind the Yellow Line. The Yellow Line is the line they were supposed to retreat behind. The attacks included an RPG shot at the military force and a sniper fire against a military force, is what an Israeli official says. Now, you hear all that and say, well, my God, it sounds like they defy the ceasefire agreement. They're not following through. They still haven't given back the deceased hostages. They continued on with this war, so now it's okay if Israel goes and attacks. Now, here's the problem with all this, and again, I've been researching this in depth for you, because I want you to know the real information. Number one, regarding what happened yesterday. And again, I can't confirm nor deny this report, but this is what's being said by many independent researchers. And it's saying that the White House knew the Rafah explosion, that would be the explosion that took place, that they're talking about, was from an Israeli bulldozer hitting a UXO, not Hamas. So there we go. So the White House and the Pentagon reportedly knew that the Rafah explosion was caused by an Israeli settler bulldozer running over an unexploded ordnance. That would be a UXO. Contradicting what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed, that Hamas fighters had emerged from the tunnels and, of course, were shooting at the IDF. So therefore, he gave carte blanche to resume the fighting. That lasted long, right, folks? 8 days. That's impressive for Netanyahu. 8 days before he decides to break it on his own. Yep, according to the sources cited by Ryan Grimm from DropSite, U.S. officials were then briefed soon after the blast that the incident resulted from an Israeli settler operating a bulldozer, triggering the UXO, not a Hamas operation. Now, despite all this, Netanyahu publicly accused Hamas. That's all he has to do. Hamas did this, boom, we're back in the war. Everyone nods their head, don't ask questions, then here we go. And announced that he would block all aid from entering Gaza in response. Yep. So again, let's break this down. We got to go over this because, again, this is so out of control. It's just ridiculous in many respects. First of all, we have the defense minister, Bezalel Smotrich, calling for Jewish settlements now in Gaza, right? So if we're to understand that they're following through with their end of the bargain, in which the later points and one of the later phases, of course, is the creation of a Palestinian state. Yeah, we have leaders from the Israeli government saying, you know what? We're going to have Jewish settlements inside Gaza. Again, they're telling you exactly that they're not following through with this. Netanyahu said this to Israeli press. He doesn't say it in America, of course, but he says it to the Israelis. Again, giving way to signal that the Israeli presence in Gaza will not go away. They're not going to leave Gaza indefinitely. That's a wishful thinking. Again, that's part of the deal too, by the way. They're not going to have anything to do with the Gaza Strip. That was what it said. Again, this would put an end to any kind of talks of a Palestinian state. Now, President Trump, since declaring that Hamas must disarm, he said that we will disarm them. He gave no indication of boots on the ground of American troops, which would be guerrilla warfare, which isn't working very well for the IDF. I just want to share that with President Trump. The Israelis can't even do it. So what makes him think that the American troops would do any better with this? Again, I believe President Trump would give the go-ahead back to Israel to resume this bombing and the withholding of aid to this region. Should Netanyahu want this? Again, he's given Netanyahu everything he wants. It doesn't seem like he's going to stop this. He should be putting his foot down right now saying, no, we're not going to go continue to fight this. We're not going to continue the bombing. We're working towards peace, but we're not seeing anything. And again, they've been very quiet about this. Very, very quiet about this. But as of right now, Israel has not held up its end of the duty of this deal. And they've done it in many different ways. They haven't sent in the 600 aid trucks by the UN each day. That was agreed upon in the actual proposal. Last time it was only 150 trucks, which again is simply not enough. And again, now they're talking about cutting off aid fully. So understand that that's progressed now. So now they're not even sending any type of aid into the region. That's completely bombarded, by the way. Rafah's just leveled out. I was listening to Anthony Aguilar, who's been in Gaza recently, and he says Rafah's in the south of the Gaza Strip, by the way, going towards the Sinai Peninsula, for those of you that don't know. It's leveled so much that you can even see the buildings in Tel Aviv to the north. That's how flattened the entire region is. That's pretty remarkable, I think I'd have to say. But that's happening. You have 38 different people killed now by the IDF since this proposed ceasefire 8 days ago. Why hasn't President Trump condemned this behavior from Israel, though? And I think we all know why. I don't think I need to spell it out for you anymore. But Hamas still has arms, and it has representation. The bodies of the deceased Israeli hostages have not been returned, largely, again, due to the fact that they probably have died from the bombing campaign that Israel has placed on Gaza. You have to understand this, folks. The whole area is in ruins. 83% of this whole this territory, because it's not a nation, is in ruins. It lies in ruins and complete destruction. Anyone that wants to see it can go online and look at it. I mean, I don't have to spell it out for you. But this whole area is in ruins. There's massive levels of debris, just broken down buildings on top of each other. I mean, it's completely in ruins. And wherever they're holding some of these deceased hostages, many of them probably died, I'd have to assume, from this bombing campaign from the IDF for 2 years. It's not unreasonable to think that. Now, I know we'd love to think that just, Hamas had him and just killed him. Listen, I told you before, the only leverage that Hamas has is taking Israeli hostages. That's not a good thing. I don't agree with it. But that's their only means for getting some type of negotiation going. Because Israel certainly doesn't give a damn about the Palestinians. They could care less. I think that's pretty apparent. But here we go. They took some, I think it was 248, 250 hostages. I don't know the exact number. But each one of those hostages represents some type of leverage to get back some of the 12,000 Palestinian prisoners and or hostages they've taken in the past and, of course, since October 7th, 2023. Let's not forget that, right? We got to understand, there were hostages taken on both sides, folks. I know we're never told about the Palestinian hostages, but the IDF has taken them. Many of them have been treated extremely poorly. That's why you never saw any of them being released. We only saw the Israeli hostages being released. You didn't see what happened to some of the Palestinian hostages. Just thought I'd share that with you as well. So wouldn't that be something? You see the Palestinians leaving, but you didn't see any of that. And there's a reason why. And again, I'm told they were not kept in very good conditions as well. But here we go. What is stopping Israel from restarting this war in Gaza? Again, it only took one little thing to start it all off. That's what it was. Again, all I have to do is say Hamas is still armed, Hamas is still a threat, Hamas set off this bomb, even though we ran it over, and there you go. You have the resuming of this war. So there you go. This is it. Now, I've noticed that Israel hasn't stopped bombing, obviously, in southern Lebanon. This was happening even as early as last week. And again, it appears that most of the country is supportive of these actions, really for Greater Israel. Certainly not all, of course, but Greater Israel is still in their minds. This is what they want. They want that Gaza Strip. They want the West Bank. They want the Golan Heights. They want parts of Syria. They want all of Lebanon, a little bit of Turkey, quite a bit of Iraq, Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan, and some of Egypt even. Yeah, there you go. So with that in mind, with this goal in mind, and with all this looming over Netanyahu's head, with these charges that he's being brought up on, he needs to keep himself relevant, so he needs constant war. Again, they keep pushing back his trials for him, very conveniently, and these wars continue on. So the ceasefire was a great idea. We all wanted to see it because we thought, hey, at least there's not going to be any slaughter. But it seems like things have resumed very, very quickly. It seems like it's falling apart right in front of our eyes. Again, I applaud President Trump for trying to bring peace to the region. But anyone who's, again, studied the region, knows how Netanyahu operates, knows that he's never honored any type of ceasefire. And if one side could just say, hey, the other side did this, here we go, who's holding them accountable? I mean, the entire agreement was made not even with Palestinian leadership or with Israeli leadership. It was President Trump, again, meeting with the Gulf Arab states that came together and said, let's do this. Now, both sides said, okay, we'll agree to this, but they never sat down and actually hashed things out. And that's one of the biggest problems of this entire thing. In my mind, that's what it comes down to. So I'm not shocked that this is happening. I'm not shocked it's not falling apart. But let's see what happens. Let's see if this story actually makes it. But again, I'm reading this to you as I see it. Says journalist Kurt Mills from the American Conservative quoted a senior U.S. administration official confirming Hamas did nothing. An Israeli tank hit an unexploded IED that had probably been there for months. Again, they've dropped bombs and bombs and bombs all over this region, folks. Now, it is possible some don't detonate. That happens. We saw that in Iraq in many places. These things happen. But again, they're using this as a false flag to continue the war. Because Netanyahu is not letting this go. Their leadership is telling you exactly what's happening. Ben Gvir just came out and says, I call on the prime minister to, again, go full strength into this region again and resume bombing. This is what they want. They want settlements in Gaza and they want no Palestinians there. That's the truth of the matter. And that's why I share it to you on this show. You know what? Again, the foreign theater right now is a big mess, I'd have to say. Even the AP is calling that President Trump now is calling Colombia's Petro, an illegal drug leader and announces tariffs and the end of U.S. aid. Well, I'm glad one thing. I'm glad about the end of the U.S. aid. We shouldn't be giving anyone U.S. aid when we're $37 trillion in debt. I don't understand that at all. But he says that the United States will now slash assistance to Colombia and enact tariffs on its exports because the country's leader, Gustavo Petro, does nothing to stop drug production, President Trump said on Sunday, escalating the friction between Washington and one of its closest allies in Latin America. So there you go. I mean, obviously, he was miffed about the blowing up of a Colombian boat that he claims just had Colombians on it, no drugs. Again, I find it funny that we're focusing on Colombia only and not on the other. Well, really, we're focusing on Venezuela and accusing them of being the biggest drug lords in there. We have so many other nations in there. Colombia, Ecuador, among others. Mexico, of course, where lots of these illegal drugs come to the country as well. I don't see us doing anything about them or cutting off aid there. Yep, but later in the day, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that Colombia has no fight against drugs. They are a drug manufacturing machine with a lunatic for president, and he said he would announce new tariffs on Monday. What happened to free trade, though? That's what I want to ask you guys. What happened to free trade? We're supposed to be a free, limited trade, at least limited tariffs, particularly. But anytime we want to slap on tariffs on someone because we don't like what they do, I guess if you like Colombian coffee, you're screwed. But what happened to free trade? What's going on here? And you're paying for anything now that comes into the United States from Colombia with an extra tariff on it. That means you pay that tax. Anytime you hear tariff, I want you to think tax, folks. Don't think, oh, tariff, yeah, they just give the U.S. government more money. Who do you think makes up the difference for that cost, folks? You do. The taxpayer does. The consumer. So I like that you're all appreciative of these tariffs. You're paying more because of it. More from you. It all lands on you. That's what it comes down to. Oh, by the way, one of the top admirals, this is in the Hill, by the way. Top admiral's retirement sets off alarm bells over Caribbean boat strikes. And again, this has been happening between the United States and Venezuela. And of course, one boat coming out of Colombia. But this abrupt retirement from this four-star Navy admiral overseeing the U.S.'s military strikes against boats in the Caribbean is now raising alarms to the validity of the attacks and the Trump administration's broader plans in the region. You know, I told you about this before. I don't agree with these strikes. I don't agree with these strikes for many reasons. Number one, there's no due process. These ships pose no threat to us. We don't know who's on the boats, of all things. We don't know if there's drugs on these boats. We assume there are. But where is the due process? Why do we have a military that will not stand up and say, you know what? Why don't we detain the boat? We search the boat. We see where the boat is going. And their idea, of course, is, oh, well, it's going to Puerto Rico. It's going to Mexico. And then those drugs come in the United States that way. But still, if there are drugs on the boat, you arrest, you stop the boat. You detain it, you detain the people on it, you search it. If you find drugs, you hold the people accountable. That's due process. Simply blowing up a boat and saying, hey, look, there was drugs on it. That might make people feel good, but that's not anything to do with the rule of law. Certainly not international law as well. So, again, this is where I disagree with President Trump on this. Now, I'm not against his fight against drugs entering the country illegally. Certainly far from it. But the way he's going about doing this is not following any type of procedure. There's no due process. I mean, imagine if we had boats leaving out of Florida, leaving out of San Diego, and they're traveling down the coast, and then the Mexican government decides, you know what, this boat has drugs on it, we're going to blow it up. You say, well, the boat with 7 Americans on it blew up. I mean, you'd all be outraged by this, and rightfully so. We have to follow international law, folks. And it seems like this one 4-star, Admiral Alvin Hosley, is actually miffed about this, and he's actually going to be stepping down at the end of the year earlier than he actually wanted to. Now, he works for Southcom, which oversees all of the operations in Central and South America, and other multiple outlets have reported that Holsley and Hegseth were at odds over the U.S. mission in the Caribbean. Again, what is the mission? We don't know. We're just blowing up boats. Now, a national security lawyer has said that everything we're seeing now is setting off alarm bells. And again, rightfully so. The military buildup in the Caribbean, these lawless strikes on vessels there, and again, the administration is talking about potential action in Venezuela, none of it being undertaken with congressional authorization. So again, we see this again. I've talked to you in depth about this. These are all flexes against Venezuela. This is what it comes down to. Then again, we hit one Colombian boat too. Not good. I don't agree with this, folks. I want due process. Look at this. On Wednesday, the U.S. flew 3 B-52H bombers over the area in Venezuela as a demonstration mission. Demonstration from what? Why are we in the region? This is what I want to know. Why are we in the region? The article finishes saying the U.S. has also conducted 6 strikes against boats off the coast of Venezuela that have killed at least 29 people since September, with the last such strike on a semi-submersible vessel, leaving 2 survivors who were being held aboard a Navy ship. So again, do we have drugs on the boat? What do we have on the boat? Do we have any evidence of any type of wrongdoing? Again, I don't understand this, folks. It makes no sense to me other than the flex to Venezuela. Which brings me to the next point, Venezuela. And I want to ask you, this is a very important question, but who is this María Corina Machado, right? Remember she won the Nobel Peace Prize of Nothing? Peace of Nothing Prize, that's what I call it. It's meaningless today. Ever since Obama won it, it was completely a joke in and of itself. But that's the first time any of you even heard this name, I'm sure. Who is this woman? And again, meaningless award. But who is she? Now, we know things are tense in Venezuela, where she's from. And I read to you from the LA Grimes last week that the CIA is actively looking to create covert operations inside Venezuela. In other words, a coup to take out Nicolas Maduro. The Trump administration, obviously, as I just said to you, are blowing up boats in the region without any type of due process or knowing who is on board, if there are actually any drugs. But everyone is labeled a narco-terrorist, so nobody asks any type of questions. Very fitting. I think you'd all agree. So the reason for these covert operations, what I call a coup d'etat operations, number one, we have Trump said that they emptied out their prisons in the United States. Okay, that's true. I'm not denying that. But you have the Biden-Harris team and that baldy-headed putz, Alejandro Mayorkas, open up the southern border to 170 different nations, by the way. It wasn't just Venezuela doing that. It was many, many other countries as well. So, again, if you have these NGOs like, again, the Open Society Foundation by Soros, and you have Catholic Charities, and many others, by the way, doing this, actually going down there and bringing people up and getting them to America, how could you just simply fault one country in the entire world? Again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's a pretty ridiculous reason for all this. And then he goes on to say, we have a lot of drugs coming from Venezuela, adding that he, Donald Trump, is looking at land as it considers further strikes in the region. Again, we have a lot of drugs coming from Mexico, Colombia, Afghanistan. Think of all the poppy seeds we guarded there. Ecuador, China, whom is giving the Mexican drug cartels synthetic fentanyl, which is extremely toxic and deadly. Why is Venezuela mutually exclusive and all the others are not? That's what I want to know. Does anybody know? Of course not. But let's get back to Machado. Who is she? She's been championing these attacks by President Trump, by the way. Max Blumenthal did a great kind of study on this woman. He delved into who she was, and he was on Dialogue Works over the weekend. And I had to take notes because everything he's saying is very, very important about this woman and how she's really a part of this kind of overthrow of the government. Now, some people are saying, well, it's a good idea. Maduro is a, communist. He's destroying the country, inflation, all these other bad things. And again, I'm not saying he's not. But why is it our duty to come and overthrow a government? And who is this woman that wants to be put in there? She's being labeled as the Iron Lady, right? I think she's the Iron Witch of Venezuela, especially after what I'm about to read to you. So anyways, this would be like Kamala Harris petitioning to Vladimir Putin to invade the United States. This is exactly what's happening right now. Now, thankfully, Kamala Harris, can't write, thankfully, but it gets even worse. She's actively signed a document with Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party to have Israel invade Venezuela. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine someone in the opposition right now to President Trump, and that's why I use Kamala Harris as an example. I'm not saying she did that. But can you imagine if somebody did that? It'd be outrageous. Again, you would think it's treasonous that someone would allow another country to invade in order so she can gain power. But it gets even worse. She actually tried to take control of a Venezuelan military base with, again, wealthy members of the opposition party. See the trend there. She has also welcomed sanctions on Venezuela, which is helping destroy their economy further than the existing government is. And remember, this is a banana republic, folks. It's obviously rich with petroleum, gas reserves, gold mines, a lot of rich minerals in this country. But the government runs everything. And in this case, right to the ground. Maybe Mum Dummy can see exactly what his policies will do. By the way, wasn't Maduro a bus driver too? Maybe he can come up and drive some of these free buses that Mum Dummy wants to do in New York City. Maybe he'll be a nice, advisor on this situation. Who knows? But President Trump, he's deported illegal Venezuelans out of the country. Think of the Tren de Aragua, gang that came up here to grace us with their presence. And instead of sending them back to Venezuela, which Maduro said he would allow, they sent them to El Salvador, in which has been described as a torture camp, which she greatly approved of. Now, Machado has also welcomed domestic political unrest, using money from the United States to create riots that has resulted in the killing of hundreds of people, done by a PAC called the National Endowment of Democracy. See, there's that word again, democracy, which again is mob rule. Did Elon Musk, by the way, do away with this foreign aid BS, I thought? Where do we feel about spending all this money to spread our wonderful values around the world, propping up regime changes everywhere? And by the way, Musk all of a sudden came out in favor of this regime change in Venezuela, all of a sudden. Shocker of shocks. Can we focus on America, though, folks? We haven't been this divided as a nation probably ever in American history, much thanks to the muddy stream legacy media, communist professors, of course, at our institutions, and, of course, Barry Hussein Obama from Chicago coming in and, of course, flipping everything upside down when he was in office. By the way, did you see him trying to get involved in the Prop 50 initiative in California, by the way? It makes me sick to my stomach, but these are the people that are tearing this country apart. That's why Paul Craig Roberts said, the enemies are at home, Donald. Yes, we have foes abroad, but the main enemies are the people inside the United States working to destroy it. Why are we worried about Venezuela? $37 trillion and counting in debt. I'm not even counting the interest on that. But here we go. We're always worried about other countries, their needs over our needs, and it never seems to end. One final important point, though, that I want everyone to hear this, by the way. If she gets installed, by the way, as president of Venezuela, this Machado has publicly stated that she will hand over all these petroleum, gas reserves, these gold mines, all these resources to the highest bidder. Yep. And we see, again, all these MAGA, uber-wealthy billionaires jumping all over this already to carve up Venezuela for their own liking, again, for their own wealth, to gain all these resources. Does this woman sound like a peace candidate? or someone who wants to carve up Venezuela into pieces so she can get rich off it and, of course, take power. I think so, folks. I think so. And I think, you know where I stand on all this and on this matter and how ridiculous all this is. But again, it's all about resources. It's all about oil. It's all about the gold there. That's what it's coming down to. And I'm certain that Alfred Nobel is rolling in his grave right now. Yep, it's all about oil, folks. That's what it comes down to. Oil. You've never seen anything like this before in your life, I'm sure. Absolutely appalling. But again, anything you read about this woman on Fox News, where else? Time Magazine. I kept reading through some of these articles to see if any of this was in there, of course. And it's just about how wonderful she is and all the things she says about, freedom and all this other nonsense. This woman is the Iron Witch of Venezuela. That's what she is. And she will sell her people out faster than Maduro even can. That's what's going on here. So it's all about oil. Just understand that. It's all about oil. We have no business being in Venezuela. But we have the CIA there right now conducting these covert operations to look at regime change. There you go. There you go. Not someone I would think we would favor in America. I don't think. All right, folks, I see I'm running out of time. I had to go over these foreign affairs issues with you, so we're all up to date on all this, because this is important stuff. We've got to get this information out. We've got to know the truth about what's happening, who these people are. So I hope you understand all that and understand this. So I'll go over one more article, though, today. I'll save the rest for tomorrow again, unfortunately. Breitbart had a good article, though. It says, ICE arrests 1,406 illegal aliens in sanctuary Boston. Yeah, there we go. Michelle, woo! Yep, there she is in all her glory. Including murderers, rapists, and gang members, right? Maybe they could send them to California. They're Gavin Newsom's people, after all. But the federal immigration officers and, again, law enforcement officers, wow, and their partners arrested more than 1,400 illegal alien offenders during a weeks-long enforcement blitz targeting violent criminals, gang members, and foreign fugitives hiding out across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Yeah, all these people that the, Democrats in the streets love so much, right? They love the illegal aliens. They think they're great, fantastic. Dubbed as Operation Patriot, the surge ran from September 4th to September 30th, by the way. And again, the targeted enforcement action resulted in the apprehension of 1,406 illegal aliens. Murderers, rapists, child sex predators, drug traffickers, and documented members of transnational gangs such as MS-13, Tren de Aragua, 18th Street, and I don't even know how to say this one, Trinitarios. I don't even know what the hell that is. Guess you learn something new every day, right, folks? Here we go, though. Here we go. We see that when the feds and the local officials work together, they can actually remove some of these criminals off the streets who are hardened criminals, whom I guess the people in the streets over the weekend champion and love. Yep. There we go. Officials report more than 600 of the illegal aliens have significant criminal histories. The operation targeted egregious criminals, aliens, and these offenders, including many of these transnational criminal organizations, know to operate in or around Boston and throughout Massachusetts. Look at this craziness. Thank you, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Again, this is what Trump is doing. He's doing the right thing to arrest these people. Again, the hardened criminals first, but there's so many more, folks. There's so many more out there that we don't even know about. But again, it's a step in the right direction, I'd have to say. But it didn't sit too well with Dumb Lemon over this weekend. Did you hear him, by the way? The dumbest idiot, former idiot in the news media. He's since been fired, thankfully. Yeah, Dumb Lemonhead. This was him over the weekend. Take a listen to this.
Black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally, get a license to carry legally. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for? Go back and read what the Second Amendment says. And perhaps it will knock some sense in the heads of these people who are saying, well, it's all great. I don't believe they're doing it without due process. They're asking people for papers. They're not really beating people up. These people are doing things that are illegal. Nobody is illegal. It is a misdemeanor to cross the border. Now,
okay, so he said a lot there. Clearly he doesn't understand the Second Amendment at all, because he's a dunce. He's probably never read the Constitution. Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yep. Self-explanatory. Makes sense, I believe. But he believes, that if a nation that follows congressionally approved immigration laws that are completely legal, that, again, brown people, again, I don't know why he thinks everyone in Latin America and Central America are all brown people. I don't think he understands that the Spanish colonized. Many of the people there are of Spanish descent, of course, which are white people, by the way. Just thought I'd share that with you. Yes, there are some indigenous people, obviously. There are some mestizos people, the people that have, mixed with them, of course. But the area mostly is white people. I tell you this because that's the truth. But they love to label everyone who is from another country, even if they have European roots, as brown people. Again, stupidity of the highest order, I'd have to say. But here he goes telling brown and black people they should go out and buy firearms in order to take on ICE. Openly calling for violence against federal employees. How this low IQ isn't in jail, I'm sure I don't know. Hey, idiot, by the way, dumb lemonhead, that's who he is. Illegals can't legally do anything in America, let alone buy firearms. Now all of a sudden, he's down for the Second Amendment. Now, thankfully, most illegals reside in blue cities and blue states, and making it very difficult for anyone, even a law-abiding citizen, to obtain a gun. But he makes a foolish comment. He says, no one is illegal. It's a misdemeanor. Spoken like a true dunce. This jerk, this moron, has no idea what he's even talking about here. So he's clearly illiterate in constitutional law, of course. He's also very clueless on immigration laws. Let me spell it out for you. This is the actual law, specifically. Under 18 U.S.C. Code 1325, and it says here that entering the United States illegally is a federal offense. A first-time offense may result in a misdemeanor, while a second offense can lead to a felony charge. Yeah. This law applies to individuals who enter or attempt to enter the United States without authorization, and it comes with both criminal, see, Don, it's a crime, and civil penalties, including fines, potential imprisonment, deportation, and restrictions on future entry. So in conclusion, dumb lemonhead is not only clueless on our laws, but he also has no idea what the hell he's talking about on this issue. No wonder CNN fired his ass. And I'm very happy about that. Yep, that's dumb lemonhead for you, folks. A complete schmuck. No idea what he's talking about. Encouraging people to go out and commit violent acts against American federal employees. You've never heard anything like this before. Have you ever heard? I mean, it's just the call to violence against ICE. And we wonder why they are covering their faces up. You can't make this stuff up. And again, that's why I wanted to read this to you and share this with you, because that's exactly what they're pushing out right now. They're calling for active violence against, anytime you see an ICE person, you've got to commit some type of violence. Again, I tell you, you can't make this nonsense up, folks. And again, these calls to violence, absolutely asinine in and of itself. I've never seen anything like this before. Never in my life have I seen anything like this before. And again, we have to be a nation of laws. But when you have someone tell you, hey, you know what, just a misdemeanor, it's okay if you break into the country. It doesn't matter. Nobody minds. Yes, we do mind, Don, actually, because we're a nation of laws. We're a nation of law and order. We've always been that. It's only you and the Democrats, largely, that have been against securing our southern border. And we all should be opposed to things like this, I'd have to say. Folks, thanks for being here with me today. I appreciate you so much. I hope you learned a lot from the show. I know we focused on the foreign aspect of what's happening in the world today, but I want you all to know what's going on in the world today. It's important because it does affect us as well, since we tend to fund a lot of this. Folks, I hope you'll share the show with some friends, and I hope you'll be here tomorrow on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day.